Welcome back to my garden. Today I'm going to be working on cleaning up this bed, or part of this bed, or maybe all of this bed. I don't know how far we're going to get today, but we are definitely going to start on the spring cleanup for this part of the flower garden. Now, the one thing I'm not going to do today is what I had done to my dahlia beds. Some of you may have watched that previous video where I added some amendments and more compost to the beds, and I did some, let's call it light tilling. But basically I was trying to get rid of quite a few of the weeds which were already growing in the bed, and turning over the soil a bit wasn't my intention, but it's what happens when I was using the hoe that I was using. So now that bed is ready to go for the summertime, early summer, when the ground should be warm enough for the dahlias to be planted into. I could actually plant the dahlias into them after the danger of frost or freeze, which I still may wind up doing. We'll have to see how the dahlias are going to do, and I will talk about my dahlias probably. Maybe I'll do 3 videos again this week. We'll have to see how things go, but I'll be definitely talking about my dahlias soon, and I'll be showing you what I'm doing with them as well as other stuff that's happening in the greenhouse. But today we are out here in this flower bed because this bed needs some TLC, whether it be some of the plants that are in here that need to be cut back or just cleaned up, or some of the ground which is sunken, and I'm going to explain that in a second. Now, the only tool I brought with me today, or brought out with me, is a rake, and that's simply so I can rake back some of this mulch. Right in this section right here, I still have gladiolus. I've had the gladiolus here for quite a few years now, 3-4 years. I'm just going to rake back some of this mulch. And I don't know if you guys can tell, but this area is sort of sunken in a little bit. This is because when I dug the hole for the gladiolus, I made it about 1 foot deep. And then of course I put compost and all that compost and everything else rots down over time. So the ground settles a little bit, which is fine. I'm just gonna rake back, like I said, some of this mulch, this pine bark mulch, and I'm going to actually add more compost to this area, and then I'll just take this pine bark mulch, which most of it is all in very good condition, and I'll just cover this back up. Now, I will probably come back at a later point and maybe add a little bit more mulch, or what I hope is that in March sometime I wind up getting a good amount of horse manure, and that I will spread across as many beds as I can, but particularly around the gladiolus and maybe even some in the dahlias. And the reason being is because my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, you experienced gardeners out there, that dahlias, gladiolus, they're heavy feeders. So the more nutrition you can give them, the better they are. But if I'm wrong on that, correct me. In the meantime, let's take a look at my red hot pokers here. If I remember correctly, I don't think I did anything to these red hot pokers at the end of the year. So I'm just going to start pulling out some of the grass here. But I'm really just looking to get a lot of the leaf debris out. Also get a look underneath the plants, see what's going on. You can see right here there's a lot of growth. And all this brown leaf growth looks like it really helped insulate the plant from those winter storms we had. Oh boy. I don't know if this is actually what you're supposed to do, red hot pokers, but to me it just seems sort of logical. Going through this, just pulling out a lot of the dead leaves. And I also think, in my own squirrely little brain here, that it's actually going to help the plants. Otherwise, they might get some sort of, if they get too wet and there's too much dead growth around the leaves, they might want to get some sort of fungal infection or something. Again, I'm no expert, didn't stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. If you guys have opinions or thoughts, please leave them below. If you think I'm doing something horrendously wrong, please leave your comments. Now, we still may get a freeze. This is what, early March. We may still get a freeze before April. But I'm pretty confident that these plants, especially having been in the same location for a number of years now, are fairly hardy. And if we do get a freeze, it's going to be an overnight dip. We're not going to get days and days and days of Arctic blast, but we still might get that overnight, early morning dip where it drops into freezing temperatures, but then rises up to like 50 degrees by the end of the day. That's pretty good. The other thing I may do, I just don't know if I'm going to do it today, is maybe come back with some shears and shear these back off closer towards the end of the ground. I'm not sure. If you think I should come back and shear these down a bit, please leave those comments below. But I've gotten out most of the growth, and I don't see anything underneath the plants that shouldn't really be there. This one right here just seems to show the least amount of growth. That one shows the most. Pretty exciting stuff. If you've started your spring cleanup yet, please let me know in the comments below. Maybe some of you have already gotten out into the garden. Maybe the snow is thawing and you're getting on with either you're cleaning up your garden or doing some sort of late winter project, something that you couldn't have done when there was 6 feet of snow on the ground. Right here in front of me, I have a couple of mums, and I already see a problem that I'm going to have to deal with. But first, I'm going to take off some of this dead growth. Now, these mums that I have put out this beautiful pink flower, and it's a mounding mum, which is very nice. The only downside is it does spread a little bit, but that's easily controlled. I have a Coreopsis. I don't remember the name of the Coreopsis, but it's been with us for a while. And every year it sort of dies back a little bit. And the mulch, the pine bark mulch that I have down seems pretty good. Again, if I can get my hands on that horse manure, I will be spreading that across the bed, so that'll add as another layer of mulch. The problem I was talking about a second ago is here. And it appears that the fire ants, which are still active here, went and mounded up around the plant. Now, this doesn't seem to have affected the mum too much. One of the reasons I garden with gloves. It has created a bit of a situation where it's half buried the plant. Again, it doesn't seem to have affected the mum too much, but I'm definitely gonna have to put down some ant killer here to neutralize the ants. But these mums are pretty hardy, and they are putting on new growth right now. Right back here, you can't really see them, but right back here I have sea holly, and it looks like I have at least one or two of the original plants that I planted here. I believe I planted 3, and it looks like I have some seedlings that are coming up too, which is excellent. That's what I want. Any plant for me that will spread and or self-seed is a bonus. Some of these plants may spread and or self-seed a little too aggressively, but then I can easily pull them out versus trying to fill gaps. They will themselves fill the space, which I'm okay with. Trying not to step on live plants is always a trick. Right here I have a rosemary, which for the last few years has done very well, but this one appears to be dead. Yeah, the roots here, even though I just had to give it a good yank, the roots are pretty bad. So I don't think that this rosemary is going to come back. But this is okay because it opens up a possibility of me planting something else here. And I have several ideas right now. One of them is, I just mentioned the Coreopsis I have here. Well, I have another Coreopsis I'm growing in the greenhouse called tall Coreopsis. It's supposed to get to about 4 foot tall. So if I plant that here, that just might add some nice height to this section, along with all the other gladiolus. So this has got to come out. Right here in front of me, I have a couple of licorice white agastache, I believe. And all I'm going to do here is just cut these little stubs off. And there's new growth coming up. And really the only reason I'm trimming back these pieces, you experienced gardeners are probably already know why, it's just to make the area look tidier. There's no actual benefit to cutting back the dead stems. Again, other than to make the space look a little tidier. And these plants here, they'll get to 3 feet wide or so, 4 foot high. It's a really beautiful display. If you haven't followed my channel before, you'll get to see it in the springtime. If you follow the channel, you'll see it again. So nothing here in this general area is going to change. I have the mums, I have the sea holly, I have an open space which I think I'm going to do the tall Gaura in. I don't know if I'll do all the tall Gaura here or just some of it. And then I have the Agastache. Now back in here, I should have some more gladiolus coming up. The ground is not settled here, which is fantastic. Not sure if I should add more compost to this space or not, or just do the horse manure right over the top. If you guys have any thoughts or opinions on that, please leave that below. But over here in the front corner, I do have a small problem, so we're going to take a look at that. This is my Alaska Shasta Daisy, and as you can see, it's looking a bit rough because of all these stems. And hopefully, I don't know how the camera is going to focus, but hopefully you can see all of the green growth beneath. So, just going to get rid of these stems, tidy this up. I may have to cut some of these bigger stems. So there we go. I think that looks better. Not sure if you can see this right here, but I have some sort of allium coming up, which is awesome. What I try to do with my alliums is once they go to seed, I try to shake the seeds out and let the alliums pop up where they will in the garden. So that could be gladiator allium, or it could be, what's the one? Not the purple sensation. Could be purple sensation, but I don't think it is. I think it's either gladiator or summer drummer. Summer drummer. Could be summer drummer, which gets to about 5 to 6 feet tall. So I don't know, but we will see. And speaking of summer drummer, I have some things going on here in the corner. Let's take a look. This was the original corner of the flower garden that I started, and I have some very strange and sad looking alliums here, and I'm not sure why they're flopping over. I don't know if they started coming up too early and the strong winds knocked them back. I don't know if they'll straighten themselves out, but they're not looking great. I may have a fix for that. And I feel like something might have been here, and there is a tag for a pineapple lily, so there might be a pineapple lily underneath my knee right here, which would be good. This penstemon is, or was, home to more fire ants. Unfortunately, they've mounded up through the plant, and this is one of the challenges that I have to deal with. And I don't want to clear away too much of the soil that they had dumped, because one of the things I can already see is roots coming out from the edges. So that tells me that as the ants were making their mound up through the plant was sending out roots to compensate and help grow up through the mound, which is pretty awesome. The other unfortunate thing about this penstemon is it also gets eaten by deer. So that is going to be something that I'm going to have to deal with. I might dig this guy up and then transplant him into a pot and maybe leave him out by the back deck or someplace else in the garden. I'm not sure about that, but I think I may address this guy this spring. Again, digging him up and then retransplanting it, maybe even dividing it. We'll wait and see. If you have any thoughts, again, please leave those comments below, because I'm not 100% sure what I should do with this character. Let's go look at some of the other stuff that's happening here in this bed. Right where I'm walking, I have a combination of things happening here. I have yarrow, I believe it's a yellow yarrow, and it's a bit of a thug, and it's difficult to see it right now because it's very small. But it's a very hardy plant, and I also tore the heck out of it when I dug up some of my gladiolus from here in this bed to try to thin the amount of gladiolus I had. Also, like right here by my knee, I have a few alliums, so that's good. I'll leave them in place. I don't mind them. And where the green bucket is, I'm not sure if it's in shot, but where my green bucket was, right next to the penstemon, I had sedum. So there's another blank spot because I dug the sedum up last year. So there's another blank spot that I can definitely fill in. Back over here, I have a bee balm that the ants were moving into, and I put down ant killer. So hopefully that will remedy that, although I'm sure they'll be back. The gladiolus only grows to about here. So I have this whole front strip right here. So I think what I may wind up doing is putting in some daisies, English daisies maybe. They're low growing and they might look nice in front of the gladiolus. And they might take the partial shade conditions that the gladiolus provide, because the gladiolus get to about 3 foot tall or so. Let's take a look at the rest of this bed, because to my eye, it doesn't look all that bad. Back here, this is supposed to be an agastache, but it's gone. So I have room to plant something else new and exciting there. Right here, I have a sedum, and I think I'm going to pull up that sedum and replant it, or maybe I'll just leave it here. We'll see how lazy or invigorated I get. I'm actually going to, on this one, I'm going to leave the stems, the old stems, and that's simply so I can identify where the plant is. And let's move a little further down the bed and see what's going on. Here I have an Alaska Shasta daisy, and it looks pretty rough, but there's growth here, there's new growth, so I'm pretty confident that's going to bounce back up. So I'm going to leave this guy alone. Right here I have some peppermint stick tulips. So they're just barely pushing up out of the ground, which is a good thing. And it's good that bulbs that I planted are making a comeback. Over there, I have, what's the word I'm looking for? Canna, which I'm definitely going to have to dig up this year because the mass is getting too large and it's going to start bullying out other things like lilies that are all around it. I think right here I have a poppy, and maybe another poppy there. I did a few weeks ago plant some or spread some poppy seeds out here in the garden, so I do have to watch what I'm pulling or tearing at. So I'm pretty sure those are poppies and not weeds. Let's move a little further down the bed. There's a dandelion here. Get rid of that. Oh my. Out goes the dat. I have a Maltese cross right here, and surprisingly it has survived the winters. And I think Maltese cross is just one of those plants where it's a sort of a hardy annual or tender perennial, but it has survived our winter. So this is a good thing. And I have another red hot poker. And yeah, I really have to come in here. It's got a lot of dead leaf growth. Right next to it here, I have Easter Candy Bearded Iris. And that looks like it is also pushing up. And I think I only planted 2 or 3 here. So this definitely tells me that it's spreading, which is good. Now this area right here at the end is filled with a couple of different things. I have canna over here, which will stay in the ground this year. Depending upon how it grows and how it looks, I may or may not dig it up in the fall. It's still a relatively small mound, which is nice. Sprinter boxwood right here, which will be part of an eventual hedge that'll be up over here. It's hard to see, but down along here I have grape hyacinth. It's starting to push up, and there's a couple of itty bitty flowers, but not much to look at the moment. Probably in the next couple of weeks. But right here I have my Dutch iris, which looks fabulous right now. And hopefully in the next month or so, it starts putting on its wonderful flower stalks and giving us a beautiful show of flowers. Unfortunately, every year, because I'm a poor planter and a terrible gardener, when it dies back, this whole corner basically goes blank, and that's a problem that I have to address. So this year, I think what I may wind up doing is maybe putting in a plant like Sweet William in here, something that will flower further into the summer or throughout the summer, and at least provide some more green growth and vegetation for this area, which again, most of the year is a blank spot until the late winter, early spring, when the grape hyacinth starts to come up and the Dutch iris. That's it. I didn't intend on going as far as I did today. The goal for me at least was just to capture, just to clean out that first part of the flower bed over there. But I wound up moving down this row pretty quickly. A lot of this stuff had been cleaned up in the fall. And looking at it now, I am seeing blank spots, which is fabulous. There are areas that, for instance, right in here between the lilies and the Shasta daisy, I know is completely blank. And they may fill in with some poppies that I had planted, but once those poppies are done, then the space will be blank again. So I'm thinking maybe putting something else in there, another perennial, maybe even more Shasta daisy or something else that I have growing in the greenhouse, maybe yet more even snapdragons. There's a space someplace over in here, I think, and I know there's spaces down by the gladiolus, and as I mentioned earlier in the video, there's spaces down by the rest of it that I have available to me to plant stuff into, which is going to be pretty awesome. Now, one of the goals I said I wanted to do this year was try to bulk out my planting. So instead of having 2 or 3 plants here and 2 or 3 plants there, try to make larger groupings. Because this is the oldest area that I have, I don't know if I'm going to do that to this area, but if I can, again, down towards the corner, maybe I'll plant in, let's say, half a dozen Sweet Williams that will then grow and clump and hopefully fill in that corner, so that when the Dutch iris aren't doing their thing in the springtime, I'll have something else green down at that corner. Even if it's not flowering, at least hopefully it'll still be alive. And there's a few other areas which again are going to be open, so then I'll have to see about maybe planting within them. One of the things I always have a problem with, and if you guys have any suggestions, please let me know in those comments below, but I always have a problem with, for instance, back over here, I have some alliums coming up, but I have nothing growing in around them. And I think I should have something growing in around them. And maybe again, something like the Sweet Williams Gomphrena is another one that I have growing in the greenhouse right now. So maybe I can do something like that, something that hopefully wouldn't bully the alliums or the daffodils, but yet those plants can grow up through those things. So this way I get a show in the springtime and then a show in the summertime. That makes sense? Because that's in my eventual goal, is to always have something with no bare spots here in the garden, always something growing and looking awesome. So this spot of the garden is done. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, click that bell icon to be notified when I do post up a new video. This way, hopefully, you won't miss any of this getting planted up, nor the show that I hope in my mind it'll be putting on come springtime and then right throughout the summer. Because that's what I'm hoping for, is that this just puts on a spectacular show. And that's the eventual goal for the whole garden, is to have it just something to look at all year long, something wonderful. If you have any questions, comments, of course, leave them below. And I think that's going to wrap it up for today's video. I'm going to catch you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.